allegiance of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you all for coming tonight. The main topic is term limits. This is something that Claudine and I ran for election. We were asked to bring up taking a look at term limits, and we pledged to do that, and we're fulfilling that pledge tonight by showing you a framework that we have sent to the committees early last week as to how we could have term limits here without being disruptive or negatively impacting the committees and the people we have on them now. So what I intend to do is go through the presentation. I think it's going to take about 15 or 20 minutes, and then take your questions up there from the microphone and you can queue up and we'll answer them. And then afterwards, if you have other questions that are not pertinent to term limits, I'll try to answer those. So let me say first off, this framework will not decrease the number of people on any committee. In other words, if no one's trying to get on the committee, nobody leaves the committee. It's that simple. What it does, it says, if you have qualified candidates in waiting, you have to consider bringing them onto the committee. And you see I have a little star there. Let's say we have an overwhelming number of people wanting to get on the committee, and the committee size is 7, and you have 7 candidates. We're not going to say, okay, all 7 of you incumbents are off, and the 7 people in the queue waiting to come on are on. So what we would say the framework would be conditional upon a percentage. And I say percentage because the committees can grow in size. So let's say you want to limit it to 2 new people a year. Then you could do that, and if there's 3 people applying, only 2 would get on the committee. So it's conditional that way. I think I'm going to walk you through what I tried to portray graphically with stick figures. Here's a committee of 7 people. Number 1 is the first person who's on the committee and has been on it the longest, and then as you can see, it goes down through number 7, who was the latest member to join. Now let's say this committee has no applications. Nobody moves. The committee stays exactly like it was. So therefore, the 7 who were on are still the 7 that remain. Okay, let's say you have 1 applicant, and that 1 applicant then is qualified and comes on, the longest serving member would be retired. So that's how the framework would be set up. Okay? Now let's say the committee is not full. Okay. The committee is not full, and you have an applicant. And over here, there we go. Comes on the committee, again, nobody leaves the committee. You've just filled out your committee is all. We're trying to keep it at the maximum number possible. Now let's say you do have 7 members, and one of the members, probably an oldest serving member, is what I call a protected position. In other words, this is a specialist position on that committee that has unique qualifications for being on that committee. It could be something that requires technical expertise. You could be on the EPP, let's say, or the radio operator, you know how radio works, it's your baby. It would be difficult to take you off and just say, hey, come on and do it. So that could be a protected position. It could also be, let's say, it's the Finance Committee. And the Finance Committee has 3 budgets. And one of those is the Springdales. And you'd want to make sure that the Springdales were represented on the Finance Committee at all times. So you could say the Springdale position is a protected position, and therefore that person could only be replaced by someone else from the Springdales coming on, so that we would have representation with taxation. Okay. Now let's say up here, you decided, because the board has given you additional workload, that you need more people on your committee, that 7 cannot handle all of the workload. And right now we're in the process of giving more workload to every committee. One of the workloads we're working with the committees on right now is to have a liaison with EPP. And let me digress for just a minute and explain that. In the event of a major catastrophe here, usually thinking of the big one, the earthquake, and the fact that probably our First Service staff will be unable to get here, we have to be able to function as a community. And just like a city, we have to rely on the people who are familiar with how we operate in a non-emergency situation. So for that, we rely on the committees because they may not be the ones who go out and water the grass or fix something. They're aware of where things are, how to do them, and even though they don't have the strength of a 20 or 30-year-old who's doing it today, they'll know what has to be done. So we're suggesting to the, I don't know if suggesting is the right word, we're talking to the standing committee about having a liaison to EPP to keep them familiar with the EPP plans, what has to be done, and at times, in an emergency like that, they're already a cohesive group that operates. They have a leader, which is very important, and they have bodies, which is also important. They can come in and take over a similar type function that they are now in charge of. So that position, that liaison person or position, could be a new addition to the committee. And so the committee could decide, well, here's the thing, I'm already maxed out at 7, I'd really like 8. Or maybe I've got something new because as we grow, particularly in facilities, let's say, I need more bodies to do the workload. So I'm going to grow to 9. And we'll say to the committees, fine. You want 9? Go ahead and have 9. Add the 2 people there. The other thing we want to talk about is a waiting list. And I'll get a little bit more into that here in a minute. But we kind of operate on an annual cycle, just like, let's say, a school would, or a professional team or something. We have a season for doing things, and we have the preparatory to the season. So let's say the school year starts in May, because we have our election in May. And an election, at the end of the election, we have a new board. And the new board selects all members of standing committees when they have the first meeting. So that's kind of the start point for committee membership. And they approve all the people that come on. And that's what we'd like to get into, that sort of a cycle that we do that. And if we bring on, let's say, as you can see that they're on the bottom, nine people, but we still have 1 applicant who's qualified, we put them on a waiting list. And if during the year, someone drops off the committee for any one of dozens of reasons, the person on the waiting list gets put on. That is a fairer way than just somebody who happens to show up out of the blue and say, I want to be on the committee. So that now, the people who have gone through the discipline of qualifying and have been put on a waiting list know that they're the next one up. So that would be part of the process. Now, what we're proposing, or I'm proposing, or somebody's proposing, is that every January we have a job fair in this building, and all the committees do heavy recruiting, and we would publicize it in advance. You want to be on a committee, come. We will tell you which committees you want to be on. And if you really want to serve on a committee, you're probably going to have to apply for at least 2, because you don't know what the outcome is going to be. But then you put in your application, and the next 3 months, you go to those meetings, and you learn about your committee, and you qualify. And that's the important thing. You're going to qualify during a 3-month period where the committee looks at you and you look at the committee. Also in January, the committee will have informed the standing board at that time how many members they would like to have after the May election. And this would be the place and time where they'd say, I want to go from 7 to 8 or to 9 because of additional workload. So that would give everyone some idea of what the committee is going to look like. Then in May, the committees would submit their candidates and the board would approve the membership. And the membership is for a year. And what we would really like is to get into a situation where if we appoint someone to a committee in May, they and we all know they're going to be there for the year. You know, but if you join the team at the start of the season, you play through the season. That kind of thing. Everybody's comfortable with what's going to happen. And in the event that one has to drop out again, we have the waiting list for that. So, protected positions, I explained that earlier. Not every committee would have a protected positions. Some would. Some would have an expertise that takes time to develop. It's not something you might have come here with, but you developed it while you were here on a committee or something like that. And we would be hesitant to remove that person simply because they've been on the committee for X number of years. So we would ask the committee chair to designate that position as a protected position. There are also some projects that get started, and the project person in charge of it wants to complete the project. We've had that on landscape when I was there, but the person wanted to finish up the project before the person left. And that worked great because that's the most knowledgeable person and likely would want to finish out the project. If we're going to worry about how long a person has been on a committee, we'd have to know how to count when does a term start. So that would be one of the things that the board would say, okay, the term starts in May and it goes through June, that's one term. We're going to actually have term limits in that particular sense of it. And let's say you were on a waiting list and you came on in November, do we count that as a full term or not? Again, these are the things that Rules and Regulations Committee is going to have to put in the legislation. This is just a framework. This is the guidance to the Rules and Regulations Committee as to how to write the legislation that we think would benefit everyone. And committee expansion should be as needed. It shouldn't be codified and say it's 7, it's 5, it's 9. The workload should dictate how many people you have on your committee, because the cost of the association is the same. 7 people get nothing, 9 people get nothing. It's not going to cost us anymore, right? So, some considerations. In our current governing documents, it says we should try to represent the entire community, not just one segment of it. As we have grown, and shockingly as it is, the people that are coming in here our young whippersnappers to us old timers. You know, they have different experiences, particularly with technology and ideas, and we need to incorporate them into the governing of our community. And so we want to make sure that we have all five, as soon as E gets going, segments of our community or phases represented. Actually, right now on the board of the four phases we have are all represented on the board. And we'd like to encourage the people who are in the new phases to join the committees so we can get that kind of geographic representation. Also in the budget, we have the Front Yard Cost Center and we have the Springdales, separate budgets. They desperately need to be represented on the Finance Committee because the Finance Committee sets how much you pay if you're in one of those two areas. And so they have to be represented. And those could be protected positions, but ideally it would be someone from those committees, communities that would interchange. I don't want to overlook the fact of experience and background. Like I said, the rules should be written so that only a percentage of the committee changes each year. The experience that some of the committee members have, well, we tried this back then, and here's what we found out. Doesn't necessarily mean we can't try it again, but at least it gives us a heads up that, okay, here's a problem if we try it. And so we don't spin our wheels. When I worked in the civilian world at an airplane factory, and they decided to get rid of what they call tribal knowledge, which was to get rid of all the people who knew how to fix things that didn't work according to the drawings, and the best engineers in the world. They knew how to slip in a little piece of metal somewhere to make it work perfect, and saved us thousands of hours. So I'm a very strong believer in having experienced people and people with the right background. There are some jobs that we have here on some of our committees that require you to have a background, particularly finance. I cannot see us entrusting our finances to people who have no financial background. And that's something that committee certainly has to look hard at. The art has to have some people on there that kind of know quite a bit about the plant life and the structures and everything in our community as well. So there's other committees that probably have some requirement for a background outside of our community that they need to protect as well. Application date, if you're going to prioritize the applicants. Should we do it first come, first served, or should we do it most qualified? That is something that the rules and regs will have to iron out as well. If you're, compatibility of the committee is also important too. We've looked at that in the past. How well do they fit in? That's important. If you have 6 people and singing in a choir and you get one that has a voice like mine, there goes the choir. So you have to think about that as well. It's very judgmental, but it should not be overlooked. Right now, we have 10 committees with a membership of 7 each one. We represent on those committees a very, very small percentage of our community. Yet we rely on those committees to tell us what the rest of the population is concerned about. And that kind of can easily skew us to thinking that a large segment of people want this or don't want that. So we have to be very careful, and that's why I go back to the geographic distribution of people up there. because and if we keep the people on the committees for a long, long time, we kind of lose the overall picture. If you're on the waiting list, let's say, you're number 3 and they only pick 2, and a year goes by, you become number 1 next year. You know, I'm trying to anticipate questions and problems that can occur as they draft legislation. And that would be one of them. You know, hey, I'm number 1, and then suddenly somebody comes in who's more qualified than you, and ooh, I'm number 2. That could be a problem. Same household. If we have on a committee 2 people from the same household, which we could do right now, is that wise? You know, great 2 people want to be on committees, but should they be on the same committee? How does that help us get a diversity of opinion? Although I'm sure this Glenn and Peltis will tell us that's the best diversity you could ever hope for. So those are things that we have asked Rules and Regs to take a look at. And finally, if we're going to have a term limit in which we have a very popular committee, and I can't tell you which one that is, because I'm not sure we have one that is right now. What should the term limit be? Some people it's 4 years, I've heard 6 years, I've had 8 years. So again, we go to the rules and regs and say, canvass the people, canvass the committees, not just the committees, but the people who come to your meetings, because I'll ask people who want to provide input. And when we finally have a draft from the rules and regs, we will send it out to the people to comment. As you know, under the current governing documents, everybody on the committee serves at the pleasure of the board. What the board is looking for is the recommendations from all of the people as to how we handle the situation. So that concludes everything I have to explain it. And if anybody has questions, please come to the microphone and I'll try to answer them. Please come to the microphone. No, you have to come to the microphone. Yes.
Roxanne, are there going to be prerequisites in order to apply for the different positions? You should have a standard of what in order to apply.
Okay, well, if you're a member of the association, one of the prerequisites, if you're a member of the association, you're qualified to be on a committee. Now, the committee you choose may have some qualifications. I go back to the finance committee. They may want you to have some sort of a financial background, so if they give you some sort of a budget document, you're not asking, well, what does this mean? What does this mean? And slowing it down. Other committees, not. On the landscape committee, you have to be able to walk. Because you have to walk all over this place every month and look at the different plant life. You don't have to know the plants, but you have to be able to walk and look and see it. So there are some minimal qualifications or prerequisites, if you would, for some of the committees. But I don't think they're onerous or unreasonable. But the committees would have to establish those and let everyone know, so at the January job fair, if you go by their table, they can say, well, here's what you have to be able to do in order to be on the committee.
Mayor Ortega, 1508 Belterra. The problem that I have with this presentation is I don't know if this is the president's plan or if this is the board's plan. Because we recently put 3 new people on the board, and I don't recall any discussion about term limits at the meeting. There's been only one meeting where all the elected board members have been. So I think that this type of proposal is too complex for a town hall meeting, and that it should be the subject of a special board meeting on term limits, so we can hear what each of the board members who promised and supported term limits, that they would consider it. We need to hear from those board members too. And I think it should be something that is attached to the minutes so that the community will have a chance to look at it rather than glance at it on a slideshow. I think it's too much, and I don't think it's term limits.
Okay? You're right. This is mostly my proposal. I briefed it to the board. I briefed it to the committees. It's a framework. For us to meet right now without having an opportunity to hear from the Rules and Regulations Committee and everyone else on this type of a framework would be premature. It's a give and take process. We need to, we can't build or end up with a piece of legislation without having a give and take back and forth with the committees. This is so that the committee can start working on it. They have looked at the previous proposal and rejected it. Now we want them to take a look at this proposal and see if they can build legislation around it. Then the board can weigh in. But until we get the process started along a track somewhere where we can have to give and take, we're not going to be able to accomplish any goal. We're not going to end up, I don't believe, with a term limit proposal that says you serve X years and I don't care what it means, you're gone. I just don't see the will for that amongst any of the people. Well, some of the people maybe, but not all of the people. What we want to do is have a process that keeps the committees operating and functioning at a good level, given experience and given the desire of new members to join the committee and to work through it, and to ask those who have served a long time in the committees to step aside and let the new people come on. And in order to do that, we have to have a way that minimizes the impact to everybody concerned. And so what we're saying, or at least I'm saying what this proposal is, here's one way we can do it. Now, if the committee rejects that, then the rest of the board will weigh in. But somewhere we have to start. And we have to start with something that people are, from both sides, are willing to look at. And my sensing is, in talking to people who don't want term limits, people who do want term limits, is this offers an opportunity for both of them to compromise. So that's what we're trying to do.
I understand that, and I'll sit down, but I think the whole thing should go through the entire board, and we should hear what the other board members have to say about it.
Okay? You gotta come up here.
Okay, I want to say something, but I have a question on what you said. You said that it was already presented and they rejected it. Who's they? And we never heard it got rejected. We heard it was put on hold.
It has not come forward out of the committee. Correct?
I'm sorry?
It has not come forward out of the committee.
I'm talking about the prior one.
Yes, and I'm saying it has not come forward out of the committee, and my understanding is it probably won't.
Okay, but we were told it was put on hold.
Okay?
But anyway, I just want
Yeah.
clarification on.
Put on hold is keywords for wait, forever. They need additional ways to look at term limits than what was presented to them.
Okay.
This is an additional way. This is probably more realistic to what will come out of the committee than what was presented to them initially.
Okay, because when you say they, when I say they, I'm thinking about the committee.
Yes,
I mean, community.
yeah,
The community overwhelmingly voted for change, and term limits was a big part of the change.
right.
So,
Here's the thing when you say that, and I'm agreeing with you. But when you say the community is in favor of X, and you don't describe X in detail, so they know exactly what it is, you've got to pin it out. You know, it's like when the tennis club wanted a third tennis court. Hey, everybody's good. Then you explain to them what all it takes to build a third tennis court. Well, I don't want you to do that, or I don't want you to do this. So this is more detailed, and this explains how it would work, how you would keep the committees full. You see, the original proposal that I saw had no mechanism for keeping the committees full. All it did was hope that enough people would apply for the committee.
okay, I want to move on with what I
Okay?
have to say. I mean, we could
Yeah.
agree to disagree.
Okay?
But
we
you
go.
even ran on term limits, and we supported you for that.
Yes.
Anyways, okay. When you talk about protected committee members.
Right.
I don't understand that because we're all people, we can all learn. A good leader is someone who can cross-train, train, show. We also have, because no committee members actually makes decisions, we seek out professional advice and legal advice on those issues. So I don't see where,
I don't see us turning over the finance committee to people who don't have a financial background. Do you? Do you recommend that? No, do you recommend that?
on the finance committee, you
Yes.
should have some financial background and
Okay.
some understanding, and I agree, terminologies, but also too, somebody who is interested.
Would you take the Springdale people off the committee simply because someone else wanted to be on
I don't have enough information.
it? Well, it's very simple. The Springdales have a special budget. They have a special assessment.
Well, maybe then let's have a Springdale.
Person on a budget, and let's make it a protected position.
If I can just voice my opinion, that's all I want to do.
Okay.
I don't have a big argument rebuttal. All I'm saying is I don't agree with protected positions, but I do agree with training people, getting people onto committees, rotating like our committees do. I think that's wonderful.
Yes, I do too.
Nobody's indispensable. Let's face it, someone's going to get sick, maybe get in an accident.
Right.
I'd like to see all the committees be prepared, cross-trained. A good manager is someone who will give people the tools to do what he does, so anybody can do his position. That's my point. Thank you.
Okay?
On the term limits, I agree the term limits need to be in there. With what you propose, I think, the board comes up every 2 years, and you're elected every 2 years. I think the committee should be the same, where every couple of years, I'm not saying you turn over a committee, but every couple of years, I've been on the committee 2 years, I need to reapply. And the board needs to look at that person who was previously on the committee evenly with those who want to be on the committee. Saying a minimum, okay, you're going to get a minimum of 6 years. You might have somebody on the committee that's really, after a few years, they're no longer productive.
Okay?
Okay? New ideas don't go on for 4 years, and this committee's grown a lot, 204 homes in the last 4 years, or a couple of years, actually. So I'm not saying, maybe you extend it beyond that. Maybe there aren't any new applicants and somebody goes on for 6 years, or they go on for 8 years because there's no other applicants. And I really don't agree with them coming in May, because you're bringing in a brand new board. That brand new board needs to learn the committees, and they need to learn their people. And I think something more like a January to January calendar, where you're not automatically, okay, should we reconsider these right when the board comes in? you know, if you're gonna do that, you should almost run like a city, where a city council person comes on to the city council, all of a sudden, their person's off, and that city council person appoints one there, and maybe you have some who are applicants and some who are appointed. But I don't agree with somebody just, here it looks like, okay, you're on a minimum of 6 years. You don't need to worry about it. I think everybody should be reevaluated every couple of years.
Of course, it's up to the committee chair to recommend who's going to be on the committee each year. So if you have someone who's non-productive on your committee and you recommend them, is it really the board's fault?
Well, and I'm not really saying that either, and I think a committee chair, because I've been to a few meetings, and I've been in a committee within a city before, and the chair more kind of kind of organize the meeting and let everybody speak. So I think you need to be careful, and a chair should be voted on by the committee every year. But I think you need to be careful about how much that chairperson really has control of that, because I see new member, okay, I'm a new resident, I see a lot of control, and I see a lot of, if I put this out, is it going to be okay? If I go to this, is it going to be okay? If I go to this, is it or not be okay?
But who elects the chairperson of the committee?
Well, it should be the committee, but it should be every year.
Yeah, so
But I mean,
if they don't like who they elected, you want the board to do the job for them?
Well, I think the board should be looking at their applicants, and I think if it needs to be, and if you have somebody who comes in who's better qualified every couple of years, I think somebody on the committee should be able to reapply if they're the best person, they go on again for another couple of years, but not 6 years. And, you know, I don't agree with that. I think every couple of years we should take a look. And as the board members change, they should be able to look at that and say, okay, we have these new applicants. You know, we really like this person.
Well, please attend the rules and regs, because they're going to write the legislation. And so, you know, make your input there. This is just a framework for them to start with.
I understand that you've been doing some changes to the committee. I think some of them are going to work out really nice with the co-chairmanship. I think that's going to work really fine. The question I have is, to date, there still hasn't been anything to support the need for term limits. I did a study back that took from the period of January 2010 to April 2016.
Right.
And at that time, by that time, ARC had overturned 70%, Bistro 56%, Communications 30%, EPC 54%, Finance 45%, Landscape 80%, Rules and Regs 36%, and Safety and Facilities 56%. To date, there's still committees that are not filled. There's still, you've authorized 2 new committees that still are not filled. And so I would think until you can have stabilized committees and know that you're going to actually have applicants to fill the committees that are here, and from our history, it shows that term limits are really not necessary. There's no data to support that yet. And so I question where the premise came and why we need term limits.
Okay, and if you go back to the first one up there, if nobody applies, nothing changes, right?
But even if someone does apply, that person may or may not. The thing is still you're adding a term limit at the end of that.
Not necessarily. Then, if nobody applies, nobody leaves.
But why do you establish a term limit if that's, if you're just
Because
going to
we
use
have
this
had
limit?
committees where more people have applied than there are positions on the committee.
Rarely.
Well, recently, which is different from when you and I were first here, Jackie, it has occurred more frequently.
Well, I know that ARC recently had one position, they had one applicant.
Yeah.
And that was a returning member, actually. So
Okay.
there weren't applications
Yeah,
out
we
there.
had a returning member of finance, too.
That's right, and so I just wonder why go through all this process for something
Because-
that's taking care of this.
Because when we campaigned, the people asked for it.
They asked for a change, but they did, I don't know if they understood.
Well,
the
and
term.
that's why I'm trying to explain to them what change is all about.
Okay.
Okay?
Hello. Among the things you said, let me start from the end of my train of thought. You mentioned frequently in your presentation the Rules and Regulations Committee.
Correct.
Well, from my experience of visiting that committee, and my understanding is that most of them have been there for at least 6 years. And I don't believe that a body of same people, that doesn't mean same in nature, but those who have been deciding matters, should be deciding again about matters that they themselves do not wish to change. I don't mean they.
Okay, let me clarify one
Yes.
point. The committees do not decide, they recommend.
Well,
There's a big difference. There's a big difference.
that's fine, but I have not seen anybody being voted out by the board if a committee recommended that person.
Yes.
So that's one matter of great concern. Also, all the members, just let's look at any government, they are first selected by the people. In other words, it should be our community, not individual, maybe 70 or less people, deciding on their own term limits.
Correct.
Also,
And when the board meets, they can, at any time they want, remove someone. But you can't do it without good justification and maintain the integrity of our whole system. So you have to have a process for doing it.
yes,
Now, you can, in May, when the new board meets and the new membership is sent to it, go ahead and say, I'm sorry, you've been on this committee too long, we'd like you to leave. Oh, by the way, we're creating a gaping hole here in your committee because you've been on too long. Well, we don't care about that. Well, I actually think differently. I think if we're going to create an opening, there should be somebody ready to step into it and fill it. And if there's nobody willing to step out and fill that position, unless you have a committee member who's totally opposed to everything the board is doing, then you make your peace with that person and have them continue to do the work that they're required to do. I just don't think you can operate this association by creating a lot of enemies within the communities.
why do you think of enemies?
Because if you fire someone, they become enemy.
Well,
And
we
that's-
are not talking here at all about any firing. We are
You're talking
talking
about removing, not firing.
excuse me?
When you talk about removing someone against
I am
the
not
law,
talking about removing. I was talking about choosing. Big
Okay.
difference. Also, as I said, in particular, my concern is for the Rules and Regulations Committee.
I understand that.
Let me be specific. One person started, 2 or 3 vocalized after the person, and the board subsequently approved a rule that visitors are supposed to sit aside and the committee members are to be around that magic table. Well, I'm giving you an example when few people, 3 as far as I'm concerned, made a decision affecting the entire community. Because people do want to visit committees, but they don't want to feel like second-hand citizens.
Well, the committee chairs currently have the authority and the duty to select who sits at the table.
Well, that's exactly what I just said.
And, you know,
You're repeating what I said.
I don't see us making a change there.
Well,
Because
again, that's
Because if we have
your-
9 members up there on the committee, and then we have 9 chairs, they're going to sit at the table. And you have the liaison, you have the staff person, and you have the fact that visitors are only allowed to speak for 3 minutes at the start of the meeting.
Fine,
They are not to weigh in
But I
and
am
interrupt
talking
people
about
all the
something else.
time. And thank you for your comments, and we'd like to.
I would
Next,
like
please.
to add two more things,
No.
or stress what I said earlier, which is that people, the community, should vote
Thank
about term limits.
We have the next speaker, please.
Wow, why are you thinking me, but you did not say anything else? See, talking about term limits.
Yeah.
All right, hi, Len. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to hear this and speak about, this important information here. I agree that we should have term limits. My opinion is that they should be a 2-year term, and any individual could serve 2 consecutive terms for a total of 4 years. And I believe also, obviously, like you said, that if there's no applications of new people, that the existing committee members should be allowed to remain, until we find other applicants for it. But hopefully, if the system is working as it should, and the committees are running smoothly, as in a management position, you're training people to take positions as you spoke before. So I think that's, very important that it happens. I also agree that committee members that have been on committees for many, many years, there's an experience and a commitment to the position that's very important. But I don't believe that it can be more important than giving the other residents an opportunity to serve the community as well. And with the amount of homes that we have in here, I'm sure we have many qualified people for any of the positions, and it would be good, I feel, with a 4-year limit in general, to give more people their opportunity. When you start stretching out to 8 years in a retirement community, and I'm going to be 65. Okay, let's see, I'm going to be 73 or what, that's stretching it a little bit long. I think, you get down to 4 years, okay, let's see, I'm 65, I'm going to be 69, and I think, okay, I think I can make it to 73, and serve the community well. So, thanks for your time.
Thank you. One of the things that's really key to making our whole community work and our whole system of communities is we have to very aggressively recruit. And that's why I put in the business about having a January job fair. We don't actively recruit. Back in the days when Jackie and I were first here, we had job fairs, and we recruited. We had tables set up out there, and people came and passed the landscape, just like that. But they went over to other committees, social committee and places, and signed up. And we did. We had a handful of new people join our committees. We stopped doing that, and we need to get back into doing that. We need to explain to people how you can get on a committee, what it entails, just a minimum amount of time, a couple hours here a month or something like that. Later they can find out there's something else to it. But we stopped doing that, and we need to get back to doing it. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Lynn. I am definitely in favor of term limits. And what I'm hearing tonight is this is definitely an outline, a framework, and when it gets put together, the community will make the final decision.
Yes.
Is that correct?
They will make the recommendation, the board will make the decision.
But I mean, the community will have a chance to
I
vote on
cannot
this.
imagine the board disagreeing with the will of the people.
Well, don't be so sure. Let me ask you the question. Just give me an answer, yes or no. Will the community get to vote on this when it's finalized?
If the rule will go out to the committee, and the community, and the community will vote on it. And
Thank you, Lynn.
we will listen to the vote.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody
vote? Are we talking about an actual vote, or are we talking about a comment? That you go out and you get 30 days to comment? and
Well,
then-
I don't know if there's a mechanism for them to vote on it unless we have a special election. I don't see this as a special election. I see this as something we go out for comment, and we consider the comment like a vote. But I don't see how we can do a special election unless we want to tie it into maybe the next election of a board member in next April.
Well, it seems to me as though on the comment forms, the board can ignore the comments, and they don't have to get the community's consent. So the community really will not vote.
I think this has been such a topic for the last two elections that those members who were elected are very cognizant of the will of the people.
So basically, it means we're going to follow the standard procedure of comment, and the community doesn't vote.
Well, the community votes by the comments, yes. You're going to have three groups of people out there. Those that are for it, those that are against it, and those that don't care, which is the big swath. So we will listen to the votes that come in. And I personally will cast my vote for whoever wins.
For the majority.
For the majority, yes. And you can ask each of the elected members here, maybe not tonight, but throughout the next couple of weeks, how they will vote. I will cast their vote for them. They will have to cast their own vote. But I will follow whatever the majority wants.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Why?
No.
Why don't you want people to
Randy?
decide?
I should talk to everybody first. I'm on a committee. We voted about term limits. 7 voters, 5 voted for not having term limits, 2 voted for we don't give a shit. And that was how the committee voted. Now, on our committee, we have specific skill sets in a communication committee that are required. If you don't have them, you're going to degrade the quality of the briefs, which is, we're trying to make it up here, not down here. So you got to have a skill set, just like the finance committee or any other committee. If you don't have it, you don't do that committee any good at all. We don't have time to train you. We're in the end of our life cycle. You better have that skill set already before you come in here. So just think about it. I don't care one way or the other whether you have term limits or not. All I care about is that the functioning committee does the job it's expected to do with the skill sets required to do it. If you don't have it, don't go to the committee. If you got it, come to the committee. We can use you.
I heard about the Rules and Regulations Subcommittee, and I wasn't sure whether people were welcome to come or not. I know I went to a couple of committee meetings, and I felt like I'm not sure that my homeowner input was really welcome. One of them, there was a lot of homeowner inputs, and I got completely cut off, and I tried to, and they said, well, somebody else is happening, and then it ended up coming up later. But anyway, either they're here or there. I was not aware that anybody could go to the subcommittee for the rules and regulations for voting. I just heard from you today, there's one on Thursday. I have a previous engagement. I would like to see a calendar maybe over the next 2 weeks, whether there's 2 or 3 more subcommittees for this, where it's put out in the AM News ahead of time so that we can attend the meeting that fits into our schedule, and that anybody who has an opinion on it, their voice can be heard in that meeting. Like I say, saying tonight that, hey, Thursday morning, I've got a commitment, I can't make it, that doesn't mean, okay, I still want my voice to be heard. So maybe there should be more than just one meeting. Maybe there should be 2 or 3, and that way it kind of spreads it out where they don't go on forever, the same homeowners. But if they could maybe have a list of a few meetings and put in the AM News, give people a little notification where they can make sure that they can attend one of those that they don't have to.
Okay. I would point out 2 things here. First off, the committees have regularly scheduled meetings because most of the members have a lot of other obligations. And so if you're going to put together a special meeting, whether it's the board or the committee, it's a lot of, are you free here, are you free here, are you free here? Finally, we get everybody in agreement, okay, it's there, we'll have it there. And sometimes there's not ample opportunity to announce a far in advance. That's not an excuse, it's just saying that that's the reality of the way it works. Also, if you go on the web page looks farther ahead than yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And we have learned during the election that the AM report functions very well with yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And when we get beyond that, the readership drops off considerably because people don't want to know anything other than what's happening today, what did I miss yesterday, and what will I do tomorrow. So we're going to try to hold it to that. But you can go on, if the committee informs the communications committee and it gets on the web page, which we will try to do. And we're working very hard to try to get the web page back up and running where it's more utilitarian than it is right now. But we will try to do that. Also, we can ask that we put a notice at the front desk. But we will try to make sure that the committees, when they do have a special committee meeting on a hot topic like that, that they give as much advance warning to everyone as they do to their own committee members.
What is the timeline that you expect for all of this and to finally come to the board?
Okay.
Having to go through all the committees and everything else?
I think 2 months before something comes to the board is generous. Does that help?
We're talking term limits. In my opinion, currently we have term limits. With all the framework that's been presented tonight, I do not see any change in the total picture. Meaning, the board has the final say-so. The board currently appoints the committee members.
Yes.
To a term of 1 year.
That's correct.
So, going through all of this, then what different do we end up with after spending all the time, the headaches, etc., etc.? What different do we end up with than we currently have through the process? Have a job there, fine. Get more applicants, fine. If we don't have openings on the committee, they get put in the same way they always do. The board has the final say-so. We have term limits of 1 year.
But the board doesn't want to go through and just harvest off the top without having an orderly transition process where we retain the juniors after the seniors leave and we bring up the sophomores and the freshmen. We want to have an orderly progression. And we want to have a system that invites opportunity for the new people who have moved into the community to come in and to become a freshman so that they can work their way through. Right now, we don't necessarily have that. And we as a board, and we get it reconstituted after every election, we tend to blanket approve. If we have 70 people out there and are going to go through it name by name by name in a meeting, well, there won't be very many people at the end of the meeting, I'll tell you that. But it's very difficult to do that. We have to rely on the committees to sort of self-police themselves and to allow and invite and to actively recruit new members. And like I said earlier, there has not been, until recently, a lot of active recruiting by the committees. And so we want to do that. And once we've actively recruited and have members in the queue, ready to come on board, qualified, we want the long-serving members to recognize that it's time to step aside. And you know, maybe it's a carrot and stick approach, but it's a process. And right now, we don't have a process.
We have a process.
No, we don't. We have hodgepodge.
Are you looking at
Somebody
something?
comes on and comes off the committee. If you come on a committee, if you sign up for a committee in May, I expect you to be there the following April. You know, if you don't think you can commit for the entire year, you shouldn't join on the committee.
I don't disagree with that.
Okay, and that's what I'm saying. You know, it's an annual thing.
All I heard from the first thing you said was that it was too much work for the board to go through these things. Consequently, looking at something to make it easier for the board, not something that is for a betterment of the community.
I don't think I said that.
You did, just in your first comment.
I don't think I said that made it easier for the board. But I would like to.
I'd like to have a point of order. Why you didn't make him come up to the microphone and you made a lady that appeared a little bit immobile, and you wouldn't listen to her.
Lynn and I went through a lot of discussions on term limits. My concept of term limits is you have a committee of 7 people, and you have maybe 2 or 3 that have been in there 8, 10 years. And we know that there have been other people out there waiting and asking and say, I'd like to be on that committee. Well, nobody's off of this committee. My feeling is those people that have been on 10, 11 years, or haven't been around 10, 11, but 8, 9, 10 years, you know, you're doing a good job, but, you know, you must be tired. And it's time, that's what we're talking about. It's time to say, I've done my 8 to 10 years. That person from the new area has not been on this committee yet. Give them a chance to talk for the people and represent the people in that area. So I'm going to be respectful and I'm going to move on.